I guess we can start now. Um, so thank you everyone for coming. Welcome to this event discussing the student careers available at the Leamington Mega Lab. Today you will learn about the facility, the opportunities available, and get a head start on your application by networking with recruitment officers and heads of department at this event. The event will start off with a presentation and then open up to a Q&A session where you can raise your hand or unmute, or you can even use the chat function. Just bear in mind, we are recording for anyone that can't attend. Anyway, that's it from me. I'll pass on to Jonathan to begin the event.
Nice. Thanks, Yessa. Really appreciate that. Just going to go ahead and share my screen. Perfect. Awesome. Nice. Well, thanks everybody for attending. My name's Jonathan Mills. I work for a company called Fuel, and I've been in recruitment since 1994. And prior to that, I was very fortunate enough to attend Warwick Uni, and I graduated in '93 in physics on that. And then I've been in recruitment since 1994. And I've been very fortunate enough to work on a number of different opportunities in the recruitment space, and one of which is the new Mega Lab facility. I'm not sure how many people are aware of exactly what it's all about, so I thought I'll start off with a few different government press releases and give everyone a little bit of an overview, and then we can get a bit more into the detail of the requirements and specifically the need for in-depth data science skills. On that. Obviously, it's been a while since I graduated, as I said, but I realised that it is quite a challenging market at the moment for graduates. On that, so also want to maybe talk a bit about the opportunity as well in a wider market standpoint, and possibly about how I feel that this opportunity is really a great CV builder, and certainly would be a great opportunity to give you a good springboard for your next role. And certainly when I'm talking to any candidate who's looking for work, I always talk about how's this role going to help you get your next role, because you've always got to be thinking ahead on that. So here we go. Right. So the Mega Labs. Like I say, I'm not sure how many people have heard about this. So currently, at the moment, we're obviously in a very challenging state. We're in this lockdown situation where we are endeavoring to try and test as many individuals to understand who's infected, who's not infected, who's asymptomatic, etc. Now, at the moment, most of the testing is being done by what the government's calling lighthouse labs. Those lighthouse labs are facilities like where Tim worked at AstraZeneca, as an example, where private companies have been awarded a government contract to run COVID testing and to run data analysis on those tests. Now, unfortunately, it's what we needed. We needed it fast. We needed those labs to be up and ready and up to speed. And people like PerkinElmer, Pfizer, AstraZeneca have already got those facilities up and going. And it's very easy for them to then expand the capability of testing in those labs. However, not a cost-effective solution for the government, and also not a long-term solution for the government. So what the government's decided to do is build two, what they're calling mega labs, one in Leamington and one in Scotland. And the idea is they will be government-run facilities to provide long-term testing for the UK. That will be testing in cancer, diabetes, many other viral diseases, not only COVID. And this is a long-term solution. So what they're doing at the moment is using this short-term solution of the Lighthouse Labs. And then, but in the background, they're trying to build these new facilities. It's exciting. 4,000 jobs across those two facilities. So 2,000 new opportunities in Leamington. I'll get into a bit more detail about exactly the numbers of who's what. But the idea is there's going to be 2 facilities, one in Glasgow, one in Leamington. Each will have about 2,000 workers, and each will be able to do 3,000 tests, 300,000 tests per day. Now, if we look at the moment, we're testing across all the other labs. We're testing 670,000 per day. So this will give us a further 600,000, and then obviously as this testing tails off, it will open up more opportunities around that. So because obviously we're fully aware that we need to test more people, so that as we can, with Boris and his new plan, which is really good, and I'm getting really excited about going to a beer garden, we need to be able to test more people to understand if there's any hotspots, if there's any high transmission areas, and then work around that. Hence why, obviously, he's got his plan, and he's talking about he's going to be ruled by the data, not dates. And the key is, if we don't have testing data, then we don't have data to analyze. So the testing is key. On that, I'll share these links. We can share these links. It's not a problem on that. And there's a bit more detail about Matt Hancock and what he's talking about. And it's really exciting because, unfortunately, the UK is behind certain countries in Europe in their testing capabilities. And these facilities will bring us back up and on a par with world-class countries like Germany and the US, where their testing facilities are. So that was a bit about that. So that's that. So what types of people do they need and how many? So top line is each facility will need 2,000 people, right? And it is going to be a huge laboratory facility. So there will be many, many different skill sets required, from a person who works in the canteen to the person that maintains the IT system to the data scientist. You know, very, very diverse number of opportunities on that. The majority of the opportunities, of course, will be what they call sample handlers. So the people that are actually doing the tests. And there'll be well over 1,000 of those people in the facility on that. So what we did was we put together a bit of a landing page on our website to really talk about the main 3 roles that we're focusing on.
Sorry, I think you're just showing the PowerPoint, not your whole screen. I can't see the website if you've opened that already.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Tim. Screen two. Yep. You got that, Tim? That one?
That's perfect, yeah.
Oh, perfect. Oh, apologies. Was that so people didn't see that bit then?
I don't think so.
People see this bit? Oh, apologies. Right. Okay. So yeah, that's a bit about the government press release, and it talks about here about the 4,000 jobs, and it talks about the testing, and it talks about the different labs and the locations. Right. So what we've done is, like I say, we've built a landing page on our website to be able to talk through the main opportunities. And what we thought we would do is, you know, we'd reach out to a number of the universities locally, and obviously being an ex-Warwick person, went straight for Warwick. And obviously the majority of the roles that we're trying to focus on are the highly technical opportunities for graduates. And the 3 roles that are there are data scientists, biomedical scientists, and lab technicians. On that. So if we start with the data science roles, there's around 50 of those roles. Now, those roles are a contract role. Now, I understand there's a bit of nervousness around accepting a contract role. These are government contract roles, and they are 18 months in duration. Right? And they are paid via ourselves on weekly in arrears. And the hourly rate is £17.28. The reason why the numbers are calculated so strictly is because this is a government facility and it is all done on the National Health Government Pay Scale bandings. So just to explain, because there might be some people that aren't familiar with how it works when you're contracting, there are different ways of working when you're contracting. You can work PAYE, pay as you earn, you pay your tax as you earn it, or you can work as a self-employed contractor. These opportunities, being government opportunities, are based on a PAYE basis. So you would get holiday pay, sick pay, and you would get a pension contribution on top of that. If anyone's got any further questions, we can go to the end a little bit on that side of it. So these data science roles, so they are 18-month contracts. You will also be paid a 9-monthly bonus. So every 9 months, so halfway through the contract and at the successful completion of the contract, you will get a bonus. And that bonus is 10% of what you've earned during those 9 months. I'm not super familiar with the data science market, but from my conversations with Tim suggests that this is pretty good. We're looking at just shy of 40,000 a year for a graduate position on that. So in my mind, that sounds like quite a good number on that. I know obviously London pays differently, banking pays differently, but for a local Leamington-based role, I feel that this seemed to be quite a good numbers on that. And as you can see, in my mind, this is quite a standard data science role. It is R and Python experience sitting on MySQL and SQL databases. Very, very standard setup. Am I right, Tim?
Very much, yeah.
Yeah. So certainly, that is the core skill is the R and Python scripting. So what will you be doing? So you will be using this PCR, so the DNA analysis data of the COVID tests, to be able to look at trends. Look at trends of transmission rates, look at trends through age groups, diverse groups, BAM groups, etc. Particular spots of using the track and trace data to understand where, if there's any facilities that transmission data is higher or lower, and if it's anything linking to any underlying health conditions. We're obviously aware that some of the COVID is clearly, it does affect people with certain lung diseases and other diseases, because obviously it does affect that quite significantly. So, but you would have access to all that data. And then what I think the cool thing is that your data is going to be used to make a difference on that. So that's what I really quite like about that. So that's the data science role, and I think we'll pick up some more questions around that in a minute. But there's 50 positions open. We have interview times for next week, and we're looking at start dates April, May, June, and going further. So that's that one. And then we've got the biomedical roles on that. Again, graduate positions. This is the lead one, but there is a number of different levels. We've got levels starting from £12 per hour upwards on that. But the majority of the roles really focus around having a degree in biomedical science and then having experience in PCR testing and RNA extraction. So quite standard, I believe. When you're doing a biomedical science degree at university, you're going to do some lab work and it would involve this type of thing. So again, that one's a senior one. I'll talk through a bit more about some of the other roles that we got. And then we've got the lab technician roles, and we've got 50 senior lab technician positions open and 100 lab technician positions open. So again, This is for the senior lab technician. On that. And a lot of the people we've been placing in this role, again, has got a biomedical science degree and maybe have done a gap year or maybe 1 to 2 years of experience. On that. And again, the focus is around this PCR methods and PCR testing and working obviously in a lab environment to these ISO standards, which again is standard across all biomedical laboratories, be it in the UK and Europe. So that's a bit more of an info about the number of people and what we're needing. Right, there are some challenges, you know. So I was talking to Tim, and I just wanted to make sure that we're very open and honest on how the project's going. Pretty challenging, you know. We're talking about building a 2,000 person laboratory in less than 3 months. So it's pretty challenging. And the building used to be a plumbing warehouse. Can people see that one? Or are you still seeing the PowerPoint?
Yeah, that's coming through.
Perfect. So as we can see, it's a very big warehouse on that. And it used to be owned by a company called Worsley Plumbing. And it was a very, very high-tech automated warehouse. And it actually only had around 40 to 50 people in it because the whole warehouse was all automated. Very similar to one of the Amazon-style automated warehouses where it's all robotic pick and place of items on that. So not really geared up to be a laboratory, not really geared up to have 2,000 workers, but it's a great blank canvas. And that's my understanding is that what they've looked at it is they've gone, it's a huge warehouse, it's a blank canvas. We can turn it into what we would like it to be. It literally is an empty warehouse. Now, I'm not an expert in this field, but my understanding is that what they're looking at doing is that there are opportunities where you can actually purchase prefabricated laboratories that come in like a container. They're almost like on the back of a truck, and they get delivered. On that, and the idea will be is to try and use these prefabricated laboratories and build them inside the warehouse. On that, again, quite challenging in a COVID situation at the moment, getting the raw materials, getting the people, etc. Planning permission and other regulations, not easy. If you look where it is, I don't know if people are familiar with how familiar people are in Leamington, but it is on a very large industrial estate, but it's actually also right next to housing. Very next to a lot of housing. Suddenly, if you're then talking about having 500 workers turn up for a shift and drive through a housing estate, it's not ideal. So there's a lot of challenges around that, especially when the warehouse is normally only having about 50 staff. So the car park is clearly nowhere near what's required. I don't know how people know Leamington reasonably well, but you've got the Sainsbury's there, you've got some of these places here, and then obviously going towards Warwick on that. Everyone see that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thanks, Meg. Thanks, Meg. So we got that there. Let's go back here to that point. So there are some challenges: the physical building, the planning, the logistics, the construction. You know, this facility was meant to be opened in December. We've got our first starter starting on Monday. So they're 2 months behind. on that. But as I've put there, they're building the plane and they're flying it at the same time. You know, it's challenging, but that, in my mind, that makes it interesting. You know, that makes it something to be excited about being part of, to do something that we've never done in England, and to do something that's going to really help people. And the biggest problem, certainly for us as one of the suppliers, is how do we source these 2,000 workers? And that's not easy. That's going to be a real challenge. So obviously, we're going to explain a little bit about myself and about Fuel. Right. So I've been in recruitment since 1994, and I've had the pleasure of working on a number of very large projects. And Fuel, we've been based in Leamington. We're based right off the parade, if anyone knows that, right near the neighbourhood pub, or right near the Tesco, right there in central Leamington. We are a privately owned small local business, and we've been selected as one of the suppliers to supply this facility, which is a massive honour for us. On that, we're already a significant supplier to the UK government. Most of our people in central government work with the Cabinet Office, they work with DEFRA, they work with HMRC, and a number of other central government facilities. And this facility is part of the Department of Health and Social Care, which obviously the NHS falls underneath. On that. So a little bit about us. We're a small business. We're based in Leamington. We're award-winning. We are a big government supplier. But for us, what's most important is that we are the only local business to be awarded a supplier contract on this project. All the other businesses are London-based. So they're going to be networking with London-based individuals to look at candidates who aren't based locally in Coventry or Warwick, and look at relocating those candidates to the Leamington area, where our main focus is going to be working with local people who live in the area or who are studying in the area, who want to stay in the area. You know, we want people who enjoy living in Warwickshire and that Leamington area to stay and find work in that area. So we don't want people from the London unis and other unis, no disrespect to them, but to come and take these opportunities away from local students who have come from Loughborough, Leicester, Cov, and of course Warwick. On that, the first person we have placed, he has unfortunately come from Loughborough uni, and he graduated last year, and so he's a great example of a data scientist. He did a degree in data science at Loughborough, and he has done an outplacement for a year, similar to someone like Tim, and his outplacement was in the motorsport industry, and he was working with a very prestigious Formula One team on that, but no experience of working in a laboratory, no other industry experience other than his internship, and he's secured an 18-month contract at £17.28 an hour to work with us on that, and he's going to be starting in March. On that. So that's a little bit about us. On that. Now, then obviously, I thought the main questions are going to be, hey, I'm quite interested. How do we apply? On that, and I'm going to now. Megan is one of my team members, and she's also on this call, and she's going to be available for some questions later on as well. On that, and then so here's our numbers, here's our email, here's our link again, the previous link on that. And hopefully we're going to be looking forward to, in May, I believe, to be able to have some inside business conferences, as Boris put it, to be able to invite some people over to our office and talk more about opportunities, not only with this facility, but with other facilities as well. Now, our contract with the Department of Health and Social Care does allow us to place people UK-wide. So there are other opportunities, unfortunately not for data scientists, but for more biomedical people, already in Plymouth, Gateshead, Liverpool, Bracknell, Milton Keynes, and Glasgow. So there are lots of other opportunities. To give you an example, in Plymouth, there is 40 immediate positions for biomedical graduates. So anyone who's graduated already or graduating very soon, there is 40 immediate starts for biomedical graduates. Those ones slightly lower rate. Those ones are at £12.48 per hour, and they are a more junior lab technician rate. But that gives you an example. There are other roles open on that. So really, that concludes my talk. Hopefully that gives people a bit of an overview about the opportunities, the volumes, and about how to apply. And then really, the next thing was to open it up more to questions. Over to you, Yasser, I think.
Yeah, so at this stage, I'm going to give you permissions to unmute yourselves. If you have any questions, also drop them in the chat, and Jonathan or Meg could answer them. Give me a second. Yep, so you now can unmute, you can raise your hand and unmute yourselves and ask any questions.
So I'll probably just start with a question while they're all coming in. About so you mentioned that the start times for these are kind of over the next few months, maybe leading up to September. So imagine a few people might be either doing masters, finishing off dissertations, or just finishing off their studies. Are there opportunities to kind of maybe work part-time for a bit or to push those back? And what's the flexibility of starting?
Yeah, I mean there is absolutely not a problem with interviewing next week, securing an offer based on a start date and suggesting that you would like to start in August. There's absolutely not a problem with that. They're very flexible around that side of it in terms of start dates and discussing start dates on that. And we've already discussed with them about would they be open to people who could work 10 hours, 20 hours initially while they're still studying. And actually they seem very open to that. We haven't secured an offer based on that yet at the moment, but they've said don't discount those people because we're very keen to attract the best talent. And if those talent would like to start working part-time to help us out before they start full-time, they really value that commitment. So yeah, Tim, we are certainly open to any candidates that are wishing to start within the next 6 months and also are wishing to perhaps free up some time initially before commencing on a full-time basis. But the long term is that these are full-time positions working in Leamington, and they would be a minimum of 40 hours a week.
Brilliant.
I think we had one raised hand, Matt.
But my answer, that was pretty much my question.
Okay.
And it's been answered, thank you.
No worries. We do have another question in the chat. How much experience are you looking for the biomedical science roles, or is it just gaining the biomedical science degree?
Right, so the biomedical roles, there's different levels of those. There's the lab roles, senior lab roles, and lead roles. And certainly for the more junior roles, they are taking people straight graduates. No experience required, not even any industry experience, just pure degree experience, people who have worked in a lab while their studies. For the senior lab technicians, which are slightly higher at £17.28, those roles normally we're looking at successful candidates have got 1 to 2 years experience in the laboratory. But like I say, the focus is because you could easily have been doing a lot of work while at university and doing a lot of PCR work. So there's no reason why someone couldn't come out of their degree based on their lab work throughout their 3 years and actually have almost 2 years laboratory experience. So yeah, they're not discounting anyone at the moment, certainly on that. Those the trainee roles are £12.35 per hour, and then moving up to £15.66 per hour. On that, but certainly we've been filling more of the senior lab roles, or Meg certainly has, and those people, like I say, have got 1 to 2 years experience, and they're getting the £17.28.
Okay. We do have another question. Are there any shorter contracts for just the summer for someone studying in their penultimate year?
Yes, but not at the Mega Lab. The Mega Lab is a long-term facility, right? So they are not looking for people short-term there. The other labs do have those opportunities. We've got opportunities, like I say, in Liverpool, Gateshead, and other areas. So I'm not sure if anyone's studying at Warwick that doesn't live in the Warwick area, but we definitely have some opportunities that are 4 to 6 months on that. I've not approached Leamington on whether they would be open to those type of short-term assignments. Very happy to do that. If I've got a candidate, if I've got someone who's on the call now who wants to talk to me and send me their CV, I'm very happy to put a call straight into the manager and ask the manager directly, hey, would you be open to someone who can only commit to working over the summer? But I think what we would look to do with that individual is then to look to keep that individual working, but then that individual would do as Tim suggests, perhaps only work 10 hours a week during term time. Because I'm thinking that once you've got some skills and you've become a valuable team member, they're not going to want you to go. They want you to keep supporting the project. So I think that could be a great way of doing that is to start through the summer full time and then transition to a part-time opportunity.
Sounds good. Yeah, if anyone else,
let me talk a bit more about like the pay on that, because I think that's obviously quite important to people. On that, I'm very fortunate. When I was at Warwick, of course, we didn't have student loans and we didn't have to pay for fees. It was all free, which is very nice. But I'm now fully aware that's not the case. So I mean, it's very important to be able to do that. Now, this would be on a PAYE basis, so you would pay as you tax as you earn it. So you would not get in any trouble with any tax, have a big tax problem or any other like that. But you would, of course, be earning over the threshold. So you would need to start paying back part of your student loans. I'm sorry, that is the way it works. I can't do anything about that. Once you earn over the threshold, the threshold, is that 15,000? What's the number on that? Anyone know on that? I'm not familiar with what that number is, but it is set by the government, and obviously, go on, Meg.
Oh no, sorry, nothing. I wasn't raising my hand.
It is set by the government, so obviously, you know, we have to dictate that, and then those deductions would be made from your pay slips. On that. And on top of the £17, if you're a data scientist, then obviously you would get holiday pay. So you would accrue your holiday pay as per the UK government working time regulations, which basically says that you can accrue 28 working days per year. And then you'd be able to take a day off and then be able to get paid holiday pay. So it's not like if you're working at the moment in a retail environment where you're working temporary, where if you take a day off, you don't get any money. You would be paid on that. And they would also be making the contributions to your pension as required by law, and that's a 3% contribution. On that, I realise coming out of uni, you're not thinking about your pension, but it is a legal requirement that we do that. But that would be on top of the 1728. On that. So quite important when you are looking at temporary roles to understand exactly how you're going to get paid and the breakdown. Some companies might ask you to work through what they call an umbrella company. Or sometimes some companies might ask you to set up your own limited company and be self-employed. I am on that. Totally different tax status, totally different payment methods. Again, I can give some advice on that if anyone wants some help on those, if they've been approached to do that type of contract work. I'm very open to give you lots of advice on that, you know, so not a problem on that. But this would be paid weekly in arrears. So every Friday, the amount you earned would be transferred into the bank account that you provide. That would be your bank account. So yeah, as per the question there, I just saw it pop up. You would be our employee. We would be paying you, and you would therefore be our employee, an employee of Fuel. It's the way the government have decided to do it. Is that everyone initially will be on an 18-month temporary contracts, and they will be employees of the suppliers rather than direct employees of the government. I think it's based around it's faster to get you set up, and also it enables us to pay you weekly in arrears, so you get your money, and there's no waiting around for a government setup, going through all the government checks and things like that.
I think there was one question asking, so you mentioned that the lab is not built yet, so when will the lab employees have to start?
Yeah, so we've got our first person starting Monday on that, and that person is a quality manager, and that person is going to be building a lot of the quality procedures around data, how data is stored, and about how people operate in the facility.
And then I've also got a senior lab technician who's due to start soon. They haven't given us an exact date yet because, like Johnny said, they are still in the process of actually building it. But they have sort of said maybe mid-March they're expecting her to start. So that will give you some sort of ideas when they are sort of going to get things going properly with the roles. But it's still a little bit up in the air at the moment because, as you can imagine, it's still a bit of a construction site. So
yeah. So I think really I think that in anger most positions will start in May.
There's another question. So where did you say that you will make your PowerPoint available, just so I can see the contact details again?
Yeah, I think Tim will you've got that, Tim, and obviously Tim's going to be pushing that out via the WDSS social.
Yeah, so we'll have this on the event page, and we'll be putting up a recording of this on our YouTube later, and we'll have it linked in the description for that with all the links.
Awesome. And then and like I say, we would welcome your CV and an email, and then we'll follow it up with a similar sort of Zoom call or Teams call, whatever's preferred. On that, there will be some background checks required. Obviously, specifically as a data scientist, you will have access to significant personal data, and therefore they will be doing what's called a DBS check. Some of you may be familiar with that. That is a criminal record check. So that is to make sure you don't have any pending criminal convictions or previous criminal convictions, because obviously, like I say, you will have access to everyone's personal data in regards to their medical records and things like that. So it's very sensitive data. So we do require that. They're also doing what they call a media check on every individual, just to look at your social media posts and whether you are associated with any radical groups or any groups that may be, for example, anti-vaccine groups and those type of groups that really, the Mega Lab is about trying to help people and save lives, and unfortunately is not one to be associated with things like anti-vaxxers. That's not what they're about, I must say I'm nearly in the age group to be available for vaccines. I'm not quite there yet. I've got a couple of years left, but I'm certainly getting up there. I think I'm going to be in the next group, the 45 to 55 group. So I'm looking forward to getting my vaccine, certainly on that. But they do a social media check just to check that you're not involved with any of those radical things. And all those checks are free of charge. You for the DBS, it does cost £25, but what we do is we reimburse you for that. So you do have to pay for it yourself because it's your check that you're doing, and then we reimburse you for that. So there's no cost to apply. There's no any associated costs. And to apply, we do not need any personal information, as in we don't need any copies of any passports or anything like that. We just need you to answer, do you have a British passport or do you have an EU passport? If you have an EU passport, what status do you have? Are you pre-settled or settled? Or are you in the process of applying for settled or pre-settled? On that. This opportunity will not be available for people who need sponsorship, though, unfortunately, because it is such an urgent need. There is not the ability to be able to sponsor people, so non-EU people. It is going to be quite difficult for those people to apply, unfortunately. On that, unless, obviously, those people have applied already for one of the new global worker visas. Because there obviously is some global talent visas and there are some other talent visas that people can work. Now, this again comes back to Tim's question about part-time work. During your studies, there is no reason from a legal standpoint why you couldn't work part-time on your student visa. That is allowed. You know, that is part of the student visa, right? So if anyone is in that situation where unfortunately they don't have a work visa, but they are still in study, perhaps they're commencing their master's or their PhD, there is no reason why that person couldn't still work on a part-time basis. On that, and again, I'm very open to working with those type of candidates and anyone who's in that situation, because I do realise to try and fund the PhD yourself is very expensive. So any sort of monies that can help would be a benefit.
So I wanted to ask a bit about the sort of mentorship that's available. So are you kind of working quite independently, or are you working with more senior people to try and like learn on the job? How's that formatted?
I know Meg has, she's spoken to a number of the data scientists that are already there on the facility, and I'm not exactly familiar with their background. I don't know, Meg, maybe you might be able to shed a bit of light on that.
Yeah, so anyone that comes on board with the Mega Lab or any of the NHS, you'll be on a thorough training programme. So they'll make sure that you're at least shadowing someone who's senior to start with, and there'll be someone there to mentor you, and they'll make sure you are trained and you're confident in it as well. They're not just going to sort of leave you to it and hope for the best. So yeah, you don't need to worry about that sort of thing. You will be fully trained.
And I think being part of the Department of Health and Social Care, you'll obviously have access to a lot of the data science people, the professionals that work in central government and work in those departments. So I think you'll be able to reach out to quite a wider network of individuals on that, you know. So I think I can't comment because we don't have an individual who started already on the exact nature of the setup. But I'm very confident that there's going to be that support around those people.
Can I ask a quick question about what's the recruitment process? So sending in your CV, then interview, or? Yeah,
so typically, if you'll speak to either me or Johnny, I usually do a lot of the initial calls with people. So I'll go over which role I think you'd be most suitable for. You could tell me which one you want to go forward with. Then what I do is introduce your CV to them. They can take a few days to come back on feedback, just because, as you can imagine, they're recruiting for so many people at the moment. So there's a lot for the hiring managers to do. So don't be worried if you don't hear back in a few days. But then they'll request you for an interview from there. Now, it does depend on the role, but for the data scientist roles, they have just been doing them over Microsoft Teams. So it's been with like the head of data science, and then someone from HR sits on it as well. They take about 45 minutes on average. It is a one-stage interview as well. So if they like you on there, they'll go straight to the offer stage, which is great. So it's a fairly quick process.
Yeah. And then we would obviously, once we get the verbal offer from the client, come back to you as a candidate, discuss it with yourself, move forward and suggest that you're happy to move forward to a written offer. And then obviously we do the DBS checks, and only when you've passed the media check and the criminal record check could we put a formal offer to yourself. So the offers are conditional on you passing those checks on that. And then obviously we'd then look to agree a start date. So yeah, like I say, but we're very happy to present candidates who say, oh, I actually don't want to start till September. Not a problem. And there's no reason why we couldn't get an interview in place and get an offer to you with a start date of the 1st of September. Absolutely no problem. On that. Some of the more senior roles have resulted in a 2-stage process, but the majority of the roles that are for graduate level are all single stage Microsoft Teams offer afterwards. And we've obviously had many candidates go through the interview process. So what we would do as a business, Fuel, we would do a Teams interview preparation call with yourself, talking through the sort of questions that you're going to get, that you're going to receive, how you conduct yourself on a Teams interview, because it is different to a face-to-face interview, of course, and then give some tips around that, because obviously we want you to get the job as much as you want to get the job. And we want to be able to give you that support through that process to be able to give you all the tools to be successful on that. Obviously, many of those things like improving your online interview process, you know, how you work on Teams, how you work on Zoom, those type of things, you know, that can be used across any interview. And also we're very happy to work with candidates if they need some help on their CV, improving their CV and improving their LinkedIn profile, for example. I don't know if that's something that they promote at the university in terms of using LinkedIn, but that is a key tool in securing a graduate opportunity. And if your LinkedIn is not up to date, you know, that's something that you certainly need to work on. And certainly I'm always available to have a conversation about how you can improve your LinkedIn profile and those type of things, because I mean, that is key on that. Not that I want to do myself out of a job, but obviously some corporate recruiters don't use agencies like ourselves. They choose to do it themselves. They have internal recruitment teams. And most of those internal recruitment teams focus on using things like LinkedIn and Facebook from a social media standpoint. So very important to have your profile up to date and accurate on that.
I think at this stage, I'll stop the recording. Just keep it a bit more